The Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations present Orson Welles on the Mercury Theatre on the air in a radio play by Howard Koch suggested by H.G. Wells' novel The War of the Worlds. Ladies and gentlemen, the director of the Mercury Theatre and star of this broadcast, Orson Welles.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied, perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small spinning fragment of solar driftwood, which by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that to our minds, as ours are to the beast in the jungle, intellects vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. In the 39th year of the 20th century came the Great Disillusionment.
I've thought it all out. Right now we're caught as we're wanted. The Martian only has to go a few miles to get a crowd on the run, but they won't keep doing that. They'll begin catching us systematic, like keeping the best and sorting them out in cages and things. They haven't begun on us yet.
Not begun?
Not begun. All that's happened so far is because we don't have sense enough to keep quiet, bothering them with guns and such stuff and losing our heads and rushing off in crowds. Now, instead of rushing around blind, we've got to fix ourselves up. Fix ourselves up according to the way things are now. Cities, nations, civilization, progress, done.
But if that's so, what is there to live for?
Well, nothing. There won't be any more concerts for 1,000,000 years or so, and no nice little dinners at restaurants. If it's amusement you're after, I guess the game's up.
And what is there left, see?
Life, that's what. I want to live. Yeah, and so do you. We're not going to be exterminated. And I don't mean to be caught either, and tamed and fattened and bred like an ox.
What are you going to do?
I'm going on, right under their feet. I got a plan. We men as men are finished. We don't know enough. We gotta learn plenty before we got a chance. We've got to live and keep free while we learn. See, I've thought it all out.
Tell me the rest, see?
Well, it isn't all of us that were made for wild beasts, and that's what it's got to be. That's why I watched you. All these little officers that used to live in these houses, they'd be no good. They haven't any stuff to them. They just used to run off to work. I've seen hundreds of them running wild to catch their commuter train in the morning for fear they'd get canned if they didn't. Running back at night afraid they won't be in time for dinner. Lives insured and a little invested in case of accidents. And on Sundays, worried about the hereafter. The Martians will be a godsend for those guys. Nice, roomy cages, good foods, careful breeding, no worries. After a week or so, chasing about the fields on empty stomachs, they'll come back and be glad they got caught.
You've thought it all out, haven't you?
You bet I have. And that isn't all. These Martians will make pets of some of them, train them to do tricks. Who knows, get sentimental over the pet boy who grew up and had to be killed. And some, maybe, they'll train to hunt us.
No, that's impossible. No human being.
Yes, they will. There's men who will do it gladly. If one of them ever comes after me, why...
In the meantime, you and I and others like us, where are we to live when the Martians own the Earth?
I've got it all figured out. We'll live underground. I've been thinking about the sewers. Under New York are miles and miles of them. The main ones are big enough for anybody. Then there's cellars, vaults, underground storerooms, railway tunnels, subways. You begin to see, eh? And we'll get a bunch of strong men together. No weak ones that rubbish out.
And you meant me to go.
Well, I have give you a chance, didn't I?
We won't quarrel about that. Go on.
And we've got to make safe places for us to stay in, see? And get all the books we can. Science books. That's where men like you come in. We'll raid the museums. We'll even spy on the Martians. It may not be so much we have to learn before. Just imagine this. 4 or 5 of their own fighting machines suddenly start off. Heat rays right and left and not a Martian in them. Not a Martian in them. But men. Men who have learned the way how. It may even be our time. Imagine having one of them lovely things with you. It's heat ray wide and free. We turn it on Martians. We turn it on men. We'd bring everybody down to their knees.
That's your plan?
You and me and a few more of us, we'd own the world.
I see.
Say, what's the matter? Where are you going?
Not to your world. Goodbye, stranger. After parting with the artillerymen, I came at last to Holland Tunnel. I entered that silent tube, anxious to know the fate of the great city on the other side of the Hudson. Cautiously, I came out of the tunnel and made my way up Canal Street. I reached 14th Street, and there again were black powder and several bodies, and an evil, ominous smell from the gratings of the cellars of some of the houses. Before the cylinder fell, there was general persuasion that through all the deep of space, no life existed beyond the petty surface of our minute sphere. Now we see further. Dim and wonderful is the vision I have conjured up in my mind of life spreading slowly from this little seabed of the solar system throughout an inanimate vastness of sidereal space. But that is a remote dream, see? It may be that the destruction of the Martians is only a reprieve. To them, and not to us, is the future ordained perhaps. Strange it now seems to sit in my peaceful study at Princeton, writing down this last chapter of the record begun at the deserted farm in Grover's Mill. Strange to see from my window that the university spires dim and blue through an April haze. Strange to watch children playing in the streets. Strange to see young people strolling on the green, see, where the new spring grass heals the last black scars of bruised earth. Strange to watch the sightseers enter the museum where the disassembled parts of a Martian machine are kept on public view. Strange when I recall the time when I first saw it, bright and clean cut, hard and silent under the dawn of that last great day, see?
This is Orson Welles, ladies and gentlemen, out of character to assure you that the War of the Worlds has no further significance than as the holiday offering it was intended to be. The Mercury Theater's own radio version of dressing up in a sheet, jumping out of a bush, and saying, boo. Starting now, we couldn't soap all your windows and steal all your garden gates by tomorrow night, so we did the next best thing. We annihilated the world before your very ears and utterly destroyed the CBS. You will be relieved, I hope, to learn that we didn't mean it, and that both institutions are still open for business. So goodbye, everybody, and remember the terrible lesson you learned tonight. That grinning, glowing, globular invader of your living room is an inhabitant of the pumpkin patch. And if your doorbell rings and nobody's there, that was no Martian. It's Halloween.
Tonight, the Columbia Broadcasting System and its affiliated stations coast to coast have brought you The War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, the 17th in its weekly series of dramatic broadcasts featuring Orson Welles and the Mercury Theater on the air. Next week, we present a dramatization of 3 famous short stories. This is the Columbia Broadcasting System. Goodbye.